Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Jonny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast.
Hey gang, it's that time again. It's Friday, it's 5pm. It's Jonny, it's Brad. It's Brad doing an intro for once, trying not to fuck it up. Oh, I've sworn in the first 10 seconds. Jonny, what have you been up to this week, mate?
That was glorious. I thought I'd interject, but I just left you for as long as I possibly could. Yeah, I'm well. We haven't seen each other this week because I've been off in cider country. Well, actually, that's the wrong accent because I was in Hereford. So I went up to the cider harvest and stayed with the guys at Little Pomona, James and Susanna. Susanna I've known for a long time because she used to be a beer journalist, or a drinks journalist. So I went up and stayed with them and helped them out with the harvest, made a little cheeky video, all on my phone, which will be an interesting experiment. And I did that because I was doing content for Good Beer Hunting. So I had to focus on that and get that job done, but there's still a little cheeky video coming out. That is mostly shot on a wide lens in slow-mo because that's what I like doing on my phone.
Nice.
So that
Fun.
could be an interesting. It's like, is it Garth Marenghi who said that they used to fill in the episodes of Dark Place by using slow-mo, and that's basically what I've done.
Great. Well, if it's anything like Dark Place, then we're in for a treat. Are you going to do a sort of simp score? Are you?
Oh yeah.
Have you grown a tash? Are you wearing like a white sort of doctor's smock?
See, now in retrospect, I haven't really thought this through, have I? I mean, I've got a moustache if you remove the rest of the beard, and I was wearing a big waterproof coat because it was raining.
Perfect. Sounds perfect. It was raining. Of course it was. We've had some terrible weather.
Yeah, really squally, really unusual weather. But it was good because it shook a lot of the apples from the tree pretty easily.
Nice.
Which meant I didn't have to do as much panking.
Panking, eh?
As expected. Panking, that's what you do to get the apples down from the tree. So it's a long stick with a hook on it, and you shake the branches, and that's called panking.
So are you a panker then? If you do a lot of panking?
Yeah, I'm a massive panker. It never got old, I can assure you. Although I was only doing it for 3 days, they were still laughing. But maybe
they must get sore panking so often.
I got sore. I was sore within the first day, Brad.
It's very intense, all that panking.
It is. Your arms get real tired.
Lactic acid build up.
Yeah,
that's why.
Exactly that.
Did you drink a lot of cider while you were there?
I drank a lot of cider. So they put together a little itinerary for me, which was really nice of them. So we tried lots of Little Pomona cider, and they make fantastic stuff. One of the absolute highlights was they have a beer called Do It Puritan, which is a blend of quince juice, perry juice, and apple juice that was just one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted.
Nice.
But we also went to Tom Oliver, who's the most famous cider producer in the UK. He's, I slowly learned, actually, like, his best drinks are mostly perries. So we tried some really delicious perries by him, including one which I had to buy and bring home for you and me to try because it's just astonishing. Like, acacia honey, soft spice, soft tannin, and then just all out pear juice. It's just so Moorish and brilliant. So it was a really eye-opening trip, and I think there's going to be some more cider content coming on our channel, even though it's actually got a lot more in common with wine. The process is the same. You're looking for a mix of tannins and juice. It's kind of like a natural wine, but with apples and pears, basically.
Apple wine, yeah, because perry, I think we think of as pear, maybe pear wine, but I would say most people wouldn't assume that the process of cider making is akin to winemaking. We'd probably assume that it was more like making a beer, even though there's no brewing involved as such.
Yeah, but I mean, people still sort of say like brew. How do you brew your cider? Like, there's no brewing involved at all. It's purely juice that ferments.
Yeah.
There's no boiling process. There's barely a cleaning process. Like, that was one of the things that blew my mind as well. Not only was it basically like walking into a winery, they cleaned nothing. So in brewing, everything is, as clean as you can possibly get it, unless you're in those really wild ferment-based breweries. And in a cider place, there's just rotting apples everywhere. All they do with the apples is clean the mud off.
Yeah.
It's a really unsanitary environment, basically. But the yeasts that come on these apples create the most amazing stuff. And I think they probably dump quite a bit because it will go acetic sometimes, when a bad apple gets in. But mostly, it's very reliable.
I like the sort of... We've got some bridges across to the cider world because... we love Little Faith, and they use the yeast off of their apples from their apple orchard, don't they, to brew with. So I think there's definitely some sort of roads in that we could explore cider from a different angle coming into it, and I'd love to get more involved with the cider. I've just had a little Google on what Pomona means because obviously you've got Pomona Island Brewery, and you've just been to Little Pomona. Little Pomona? Is that what you said? Pomona apparently was a goddess of fruitful abundance in an ancient Roman religion. Well, in the ancient Roman religion. So, yeah, there you go. Fruity.
And obviously has a link to pomme.
Pomme and apple.
French for apple.
Yeah. Pomme de terre. Apple of the... Doesn't pomme de terre mean... Yeah, and it means apple of the earth. Which is a potato, right?
Yes.
So pomme means
under
apple,
the ground,
and pomme de terre means apple of the earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though they're not anything like each other, you wouldn't want to bite into a lovely a lovely ground apple, would you?
King Edward.
No ground apples. You wouldn't want to take a fresh crunch at one of those bad boys.
I mean, I can assure you, some of the apples you don't want to bite into. Some of them, they gave me one as a little trick, I think. Just the most tannic thing. It was like doing the cinnamon challenge. Just all your saliva just disappeared in an instant.
Way.
And you were just like chewing on mush. And they sometimes use those apples, but only, if you've got a cider that's really, really soft and there's no tannin, which adds texture and works a bit like bitterness in beer to make it a bit more quenching and make you come in for that next sip to sort of lubricate your mouth again. They use a little bit of that to get that tannin back in there on really soft apples, but you'd never... Well, there's a couple of varieties where it's really tannic and you would make a 100%. Like, I tried Foxwell apples, which are like lemon sherbet, but tannic. Just the most incredible sensory experience. And you can make a 100% Foxwell cider, but it is... it's akin to sort of a Gers. Like, the first time you try that, you'll just be like, whoa, what is that?
Amazing.
Yeah, Amazing. Dead exciting. You can probably tell I'm quite enthused after 3 days up in cider country.
Do you know what? I watched, it must be at least 15 years ago now. I watched a lot of late night TV on my own. And I was watching, I think it was maybe BBC 4 or late night BBC 2. An amazing documentary about Victorian apple growers in England and how they basically hybridized apples to like you would a dog or anything else. The Victorians were really great at kind of creating different things, like tiny little silly dogs and whatever else. They also made thousands of different kinds of apples. Thousands of different kinds of roses, which I think are in the same family. Is it Deadly Nightshade? I think. It was part of it was a guy that was going around, and he was discovering new varieties of apples. He was just walking along roads. Whenever he saw an apple tree, he'd pick one, and it would be totally different because each sort of individual apple tree is a unique genus, I think, unless it's been what do you call it, cloned, so you can sort of graft them and make a new tree, or like take a cutting, make a new tree, and that's from my reckoning 15 years ago.
Well, that's true.
That was basically,
as far as I'm aware, that's true of every plant in the world. Unless you're farming it, you're going to get variety within. So hops, that's exactly what happened with hops. People crossbreeding stuff to get brand new varieties, or indeed farming varieties that were working really well and had good resistance to disease. And I mean, cider apples have thousands of varieties. Eating apples have thousands of varieties. And we think it doesn't because in a supermarket, there's 4 or 5 varieties available for you to eat. But it's as broad as any other plant in the world, and there's thousands and thousands of different kinds.
Defo.
And I was shown some amazing books of historical apples, many of which are lost to history now. Yeah. They've died out, or some of them, they come back because a tree is discovered, and we go, oh shit, that's that one. Yeah. So yeah, it's an amazing and endless journey into cider, which hopefully the video that I put together will still get that story across, even if it's all on a mobile phone. Nice. Bradley, I'm conscious of time.
I know you are. One more apple question, Johnny. This one's the important one. What's your favourite kind of apple? Eating apple. Variety. Name it now. Jazz apple for me. I'm a jazz man.
I don't really enjoy eating apples.
What?
I find they're mostly very dull and tasteless from a supermarket.
Mate, you need to eat a jazz apple. Have you eaten a jazz apple?
I've eaten a jazz apple, yeah.
That thing's the shit.
Although I'm not sure how frequent you'll get them in a supermarket, the jazz.
Oh, you get them. You get them in Lidl or an Aldi.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You get a set of 4 jazz apples, probably looking at a couple of quid. Way more expensive than the other apples, but whoa, they are good. So crisp.
Okay, well, I'm Foxwell or death at this point.
Nice. Well, fair enough. What would you pair that with? Some cheese, would you? Because a jazz apple goes great with a bit of cheddar.
I wouldn't put a Foxwell with anything. It would just dominate.
Yeah. Well, okay, you can stick with your Foxwell. I just enjoy
the experience.
I'll stick with my jazz, and let's talk about beer.
Yes, so let's. We've got a recorded question. We'll save that for the end. But let's talk about this week's video, which has divided the nation that is the Craft Beer Channel. So this week's video was all about the world's strongest beer, which was a collaboration between. Can you say it, Brad?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot again. No. Schorschbräu.
There we go. A collaboration between Schorschbräu from Germany and Brewdog, and they brewed ice-distilled beers that they blended to 57.8%.
Wah.
So it is the world's strongest beer. And we enjoyed the experience, but not necessarily the liquid itself.
I mean, it was kind of an amazing thing to do. I always love the sort of spectacle of something like that. I'm into it. Like, if someone says this is the world's hottest, the world's strongest, the world's smallest, whatever it is, the sort of freak nature of the being the most extreme appeals to my sort of childhood brain. I guess maybe it's watching Record Breakers as a kid or something, but I love that sort of shit. I love people that have gone to the extreme and want to be the greatest in the world at something, whatever it might be. If it's the amount of times
lots of the cynicism. Yeah. Lots of the cynicism was like, this is just a PR stunt. And you're like, well, of course it is.
Yeah, why else would you do it?
There's only a couple of 100 bottles of it.
It costs a bloody fortune to make. It costs a fortune to produce this stuff. Of course it's PR. But I mean,
doesn't mean it can't be fun.
No, that's kind of what PR should be. It should be fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So one comment was, it's just PR, and I was just like, yeah, it's great PR. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's having fun with it. And they've put forward and used a very traditional, ancient technique for making stronger alcohol to really interesting effect. And I think that's lots of fun. So in the comments, there was lots of talk about that. Some people just coming out with, I hate Brewdog. Cool, that's cool, as is your one. I can understand why you might. Another person called me out on Twitter. I said, we don't review beer on this channel. And somebody just posted, we don't review beer on this channel. I'd still argue this isn't quite a review. We didn't say you should buy it or not. We didn't say whether it was good or not. We just gave our feelings on it and had an interview with the founder of Brewdog.
Exactly.
But I get it. I said fair play.
Do you know what? I don't think it was a review. I think it was an experience and a kind of comment from Martin on what the hell he was up to. I mean, I certainly wouldn't say I reviewed it. I just experienced it, and
you lived it.
I lived it. I lived this thing. It wasn't like I couldn't really savor it because it made my whole mouth go numb. It made me feel a bit weird. I don't
understand how that happened.
Gave me an earache, mate. It gave me an earache, definitely. I'm a delicate flower, but fucking hell, 60% alcohol does not agree with me. Made me feel peculiar.
Oh dear. Well, it was great fun, so I highly recommend you guys watch that. And obviously, there's an interview with the story of it from Martin. Like we said, we didn't get to use the whole interview from Martin, so we're going to put a podcast up probably next week of the rest of that story, because it is a great yarn and he spins it out. I've picked out one specific comment because there's lots of talking points in it. So this was from James Sanford, who said, "If it's freeze distilled, it's not a beer, it's a spirit. It requires a totally different license. If it's been barrel aged in a barrel for years, it's whiskey, more or less." He then goes on to talk about a brewery who got over 20% by just selectively breeding yeasts that could get to that. And that's interesting, and I'm definitely going to look up that brewery. But let's pick him up on this. So
he said that they bowed
beer.
out, didn't he? If that brewery had bowed out of the strong beer market. That was the guy I read that comment too.
Yeah.
So
which is a real shame. I hope they're still doing it because it's perfectly legitimate and perhaps delicious. Although, he talks about how sort of serious these guys were taking it, but then the beer is called Baz's Super Brews.
Yeah,
not sure
exactly.
How artisan
no,
that really is. But I mean, I totally understand the 20 plus mark, and I totally understand that it's very different to beer, and it's interesting that breweries are trying to get higher without ice distilling. But ice distilled beer is still beer. All of the alcohol is derived from the brewing of malt.
Yes.
Which to me is the definition of beer. Like hops don't really have that much to do with it, to do with the actual definition. I think it's alcohol that's purely derived from grain and then having extra flavours added to it. So it's different to whiskey because whiskey is obviously distilled and nothing's added except the barrel, whereas beer you're flavouring it. So I'm not sure I agree with that, but it's an interesting point. I'm sure lots of people disagree with me on that. Where do you sit? Is it still beer?
I think it's still beer. I like the way you sort of misstepped there and said it's alcohol deranged from beer, which I think that's quite accurate. It is deranged from beer. So in my opinion, it's still beer. It's just beer in the extreme. It's pushing the envelope. It's in the sort of Everest death zone of beer. It's at the very outer edges of what a beer could possibly be, which that's
so,
not
it's
for
sort
everyone.
of a hybrid almost, but it's not. It's still beer.
It's not. There's no cheating involved either. So there are like other breweries, not to be named, but there's another one in Scotland that they add like alcohol, like other kind of alcohol that isn't beer derived, into their strong beer. So they get supposedly to a higher figure, but it's not technically a beer, is it? So
so we'll get to that in a sec. You're jumping my gun.
Oh,
here.
okay.
So he also says if it's been barrel aged, then it's whiskey more or less. But the difference here is it was barrel aged and then distilled, not distilled and then barrel aged. So it's a very different approach to whiskey.
So
which is of course that colour and that flavour comes from the barrel.
Yeah, you might get to a similar sort of flavour profile, which I'm not sure you did with this one, but you might get to a similar flavour profile as a whiskey, but you've kind of gone it in the reverse manner to get there. So it's definitely not a whiskey; it's a beer.
Yeah, I think in my view, it's ice distilled beer. It's its own thing.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to say it's not beer, and I don't think we need to say it's whiskey more or less. It's ice distilled beer. That's what it is. But it's an interesting point from James, and that's got a good couple of likes. So people clearly agree, and they're within their rights to agree. But I think really, rather than trying to give it a name, we should have said it's ice distilled beer. It's separate in the video, which might have made it a bit clearer. Then going on to what you were talking about. So lots of people came on going, it's not the strongest beer in the world. And they were variously referencing Brewmeister's beers and a Dutch brewery that made a 70% beer. But both of those beers are further removed from beer by being literally just spiked with ethanol. So a significant amount of the alcohol in those drinks was not derived from malt.
No.
So they're basically a cocktail at that point.
Yes.
It's like you've just tipped a load of whiskey into some beer and then gone, it's the strongest beer in the world, which we could do, Brad. We could do that, a video next week.
Exactly.
Strongest beer in the world, just get some 100% ethanol, pour it into a Carling and go, strongest beer in the world.
You wouldn't be able to edit though, Jonny, because you'd be blind at that point.
Well, that is. I mean, we wouldn't drink it. And I wouldn't drink. So Brewmeister, who claimed to have the strongest beer in the world for a bit, it was called Snake Venom and it was 67.5%. That got lab tested and it was only about 27%. So not only did they spike it with ethanol, they also lied.
So it was...
And Brewmeister went out of business.
What was the beer called?
Snake Venom.
There's more snake oil then. Snake
oil. Strong, Bradley. Strong, Bradley. You had to check to make sure you got it right. But hey, that was good. So it is the strongest beer in the world, depending on your definition of beer, is what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, I thought it was great PR, great fun, and really enjoyed the comments, diving in and disagreeing and agreeing and having some fun with you guys. So please keep those comments going, and on all our videos, put them in. If you disagree with us, please say. And I promise you, we're not dicks about it if we disagree. We just try to get a conversation going.
Exactly.
Having said that, though, I was a bit of a dick to somebody on our Pilsner video. I mean, he was a dick first. He came in saying that our video, the bit that really ground my gears, was at the end. He goes, "It's factually incorrect and muddled. Better luck next time." To which I said, "No, I think you're incorrect and muddled."
Did you hoist him with his own petard?
I tried, Bradley. It didn't quite work. But yeah, basically he was saying that we were implying that Helles is a type of Pilsner, which, I mean, we literally say in the video, these are very distinct styles. They are completely different, and that was the point of the video. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where they just haven't quite engaged with what was going on there. But check out Mastercrest and my equally patronising reply to it. Should we take our question?
Yeah, let's have it.
Let's do it. So this question is from Rob from Hopzine. So another
Rob,
wonderful YouTuber out there.
Great stuff. Check out Rob from Hopzine. Cool dude.
The last time we saw him, Brad was drunkenly hugging him at the North Bar.
Of course I was.
Taproom, North Brew Taproom.
Now
he still references that when we speak every now and then. He goes like, "Give a hug to Brad." So let's see what Rob has to say for himself. I'll hit play.
Hi Jonny and Brad, it's Rob from Hopzine of YouTube fame. I've just been listening to your interview with Andy Parker about homebrewing, and it's kind of got me interested in homebrewing again. I just wanted to ask, what apps and software do you recommend for homebrewers?
Apps and software. So we, in all of our videos so far, have been using Brewer's Friend.
Yes.
Which for us has the best tools and all the tools we could possibly need and the ability to save your recipes. So we use that to calculate, our water chemistry. You can store like your brew house efficiency, your mash efficiency, so you can get your grain levels and water levels exactly right. And we find that super helpful.
And that's free, right?
To be honest, that's completely free. You can store up to 5 recipes for free, and then you need to start paying.
Okay. So there's a little workaround.
But the recipes are also downloadable. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
So you could store 5 online at a time, but you could download them, and then you could get around paying if you were a real cheapskate. But that's nice. See, I like software. I like things like that offer kind of freeware, and then offer more of a premium service if you were to pay for it. So, like, if you were, a small microbrewery starting out, or even a big one, I don't know what those guys might use, but something like that, that's software that's scalable, it lets people enter into it, get to know how to use it, and then they can grow with it, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Homebrewing should be about it's not about making stuff affordable. Like, if you're getting into homebrewing to save money, if you really need to do that, that's great. But it's not a cheap hobby. It's one of those hobbies that sucks you in.
Yes.
And you end up spending more than you mean to. So having stuff that's scalable
beer in
like
a bag,
that is good.
Johnny, then it's pretty cheap. But
it can be pretty cheap. So having stuff that's scalable is really important, and we found Brewer's Friend to be the best one, but we haven't really experimented with the others. That was a recommendation that I got when I first started homebrewing a couple of years ago, and I've tried some of the others, but it's a bit like, going between Mac and PC. You just it's what you're used to, and you think that's best. So I'm not saying it is the best app to use, and actually I'd love to throw Rob's question out to other people. So if you've got an opinion on which one you use, which one you think is best, we'd love to hear that, and we can pass that on to Rob, because I can't pretend to be an expert. We will be becoming experts though, because we do have a very exciting project on the horizon in which we'll be experimenting with lots of different things and really going down the wormhole that is homebrew. I'm not sure whether we must have mentioned it as part of our interview with Andy and maybe in last week's podcast, but next to me blipping away is a pumpkin beer that will be having coffee added to it in a couple of days as well. So that's our next experiment that's coming out, and that one's a really cool video, really in depth, and trying to persuade some roasteries to work with us on that coffee at the moment. They're running out of time to get back to me, but we'll see. So Rob, I hope that helps. I feel like you're an experienced homebrewer, so you've probably just rolled your eyes at me saying Brewer's Friend, but I hope I hope you've been inspired to get back into homebrewing, and we'll give Brewer's Friend a go and share your recipes. We get lots of questions about sharing our recipes. We only share them once we're 100% certain they don't need any more tweaking. So the New England IPA one is now live. We've had loads of questions from people going, is the sulfate level correct? Yes, the sulfate level is correct. I know it's incredibly low, but that is tried and tested by Verdant and now tried and tested by us, and the low sulfate level really helps with that soft finish. We will put the pumpkin one live once the video's live, and we're sure it's all gravy and all working. Anything to add, Brad? Because we've got to 25 minutes.
Not too much to add. I had my birthday this week, which was lovely, and I spent it down in Margate drinking in micro pubs, which we still need to cover on the channel. But
and everyone should be supporting their local micro pub as well in this tough time.
Yeah, I do love an East Kent micro pub, so that was how I spent my birthday, Johnny. But apart from that, mate, just glad the sun's out today. It looks lovely compared to the last few days. So
it's going to be a nice evening once it's all done. Talking of nice evenings, the last thing to announce is that tomorrow is our next live show. We are live at 8 p.m. from the Brad Pad, where we will be celebrating Oktoberfest, because obviously it's been cancelled this year. So hopefully, I think we sold out of boxes.
Great.
I think we got the full 60-ish sold. So that's great. And you guys will be joining us at 8 p.m. obviously, but everybody else will still join us. Grab a couple of tasty lagers or whatever you want to drink, really. But if you can get some Oktoberfest beers or some classic German or lagers or British lagers that are emulating that, please do and join us at 8 p.m. There'll be pretzels, drinking games, drinking, singing, and of course unedited nonsense, which is what we're best at. Join us 8 p.m. on the YouTube channel tomorrow night. We'll be going till late, I'd imagine. We'll see you then for some Gemütlichkeit.
Oof, what a word.
The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. Head to youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeer channel. Love and beer.